Isabella, can you turn on the light, please? We'll turn on the light, and as we were saying, to close this beautiful month of March, we'll have Alba speaking to us about celebrating women in Spiritism. Alba, please. Thank you.
You. What about now? Eh, Uno, dos, tres. Okay. And if necessary, can use that one. Yeah. Pause a minute here. Okay. Now? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome here in person, over there through the social media in the future. And we are welcoming also our brothers and sisters in the spirit realm. And as Leo mentioned, we are concluding the month of March. So we want to honor and celebrate women that have been actively involved in Spiritism. And actually, a lot of them, they were founders, and they took care of the first seeds of Spiritism in their different countries or cities or towns. We also want to honor with this presentation the presentation is going to bring only highlights. It's not like the whole full story. It will take a whole class, a whole course, right? But, hello. We want also to honor the spirits that are currently having a reincarnation in the body of a woman. Because as spirits, we know that our spirit doesn't have a gender, right? It's for this particular level of our planet that we need to have gender to learn and to understand lessons in life. So we can have successive reincarnation as a man, and then another successive reincarnation as a woman, and then as a man, or, it depends. And this is a whole completely different presentation. And one of the great authors about it, because Spiritism also helps us to understand the transition of the spirit when in a recent reincarnation was a woman, and now it's a man, and vice versa. So we want to honor all of you, my dear sisters and friends, with this presentation, and also for the spirits that are here present and are preparing themselves to reincarnate in a feminine body. All right. So to celebrate women in Spiritism, we would like to start with this affirmation from Umberto de Campos. Umberto de Campos is the spirit and the medium Chico Xavier in the book Good News. That's why even the most unfortunate women have in their hearts the divine seed to redeem the whole humanity. Women have in their hearts the divine seed to redeem the whole humanity. Their feeling of tenderness and kindness will be in all times, the great guide for the illumination of the world, because without the treasure of the feelings, all works from human reason will look like a castle of splendors. And it was Jesus himself who brought us this. Because when we are having a reincarnation as a woman, even our biology is obviously different, and as well the way our brain function. There are differences, that's is obvious. And it helps us to be more in contact with our emotions and our feelings. And that's why we believe Jesus expressed this, the treasure of feelings. So we need reason and we need emotion. And the two of them, they need to be in balance for us to have a balanced life. So this is a teaser for what we're going to see today. We don't know if we use correctly that word, precursors. Yeah, I have an English teacher here. Yeah, okay. From the spirit world. So we are going to talk about women in Spiritism, right? But there are some precursors. There are some of them that they came before 1857, etc., just to put the foundation. It was, let's pretend that morally and spiritually speaking, the world was like a jungle. And they came here ahead of time with a machete, just kind to open a little path in that jungle. And they continue working from the spirit realm, bringing us the Spiritist teachings. Obviously, we're going to start with Mother Mary, or Mary of Nazareth, because without her Magnificat, meaning without her yes, well, probably Jesus will come through a different mother, but she said yes, and she accepted the challenge, and she was prepared for this challenge. So Mary of Nazareth is the first one that is putting the foundation about love, tenderness, royalty, and immense love for humanity. Then we have Mary of Magdala. Her story is one of the most wonderful, is, at least for us, is our favorite ones of all times. The way she renounced to her old self and build a new self and give all of her to the gospel of Jesus. And she ended up her life serving in serving lepers. How do you say lepers? Lepers, in the ultimate act of love. So she is a founder also for the Spiritist doctrine. And Jesus calculate this. It wasn't like a coincidence that when he in his resurrection, when he's in the tomb, it wasn't a coincidence that it was two women, like in this picture. There is Mary of Nazareth and Mary of Magdala. He wanted the woman to be there. He wanted the women to be the first ones to communicate the message of his resurrection. Because we know how was the situation of the woman at that time. Very difficult. Very difficult. And having a woman communicating the greatest message for humanity, that we don't die, that we are spirits, that we have eternal life. Wow. So that was in purpose. Then we have our beloved Joan of Arc. She is the reincarnation of Judas, Judas the disciple who betrayed Jesus. And in her reincarnation in France, she communicated with the spirits, Saint Margaret and Saint something else. And she also brings us a foundation for our doctrine today. And obviously, we have our great Joanna de Angelis, Joanna of Angelis. She was Joanna of Cusa. She was Clara of Assisi. She was Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz in Mexico. And her last reincarnation was an abbess in Brazil. And we all know her and love her. And we appreciate everything she has been doing for us. And these four women, they have something in common. Obviously, the love for the gospel, but it's an immense love for humanity, like a true motherly love. So here we have some of the founders. And then we have a whole gallery of women. And we're going to start with Amélie Gabrielle Boudet in France, the beloved wife of Allan Kardec. And we're going to talk about her a little bit later. In Spain, we have the Lady of the Violets, Amalia Domingo Soler. And you see how the times kind of coincide. So Amalia was a precursor in all senses in Spain. She was an author, she was a poetess in the time in which women, we weren't allowed to even, we didn't have no voice, no void, no voice, no vote in society and in the public. So these two ladies, they went ahead of their times. We also have Amelia Rodriguez from Brazil, also a fantastic writer and educator who studied the codification of Allan Kardec and brought it very strong in Brazil. Here in the United States, we need to recognize the Fox sisters as they established the basic, the foundation of the communication between the two worlds. It is possible. And actually, Allan Kardec had correspondence with them. But the mediumship phenomena that happened in Hyattsville here in the United States set the tone for the movement. And we're going to mention Yvonne Amaral Pereira in Brazil, a great speaker and author and medium. We have Dr. Marlene Nobre as well in Brazil. And we have more and more. It's like if we go to every country, we will have someone, but we would like to recognize, and this is for us is something very personal because we want to express our gratitude to Colombia Montoya de Martinez. She founded the Spiritism movement in Colombia. And actually, she was in Colombia. She was from Panama, but her name was Colombia. And she founded the Spiritism movement in Colombia, coming very, very strong. And she already discarnated, and we have the pleasure to attend her Spiritist Center and to get to know about the teachings of Spiritism at a very young age. So we just want to recognize her in this presentation. Then we were researching, and guess what? Between 1880 and 1920, there is a big Spiritist movement in Puerto Rico led by women, and there is this book, Mujeres Espiritistas en Puerto Rico, Spiritist Women in Puerto Rico. I believe we can find it in English too, which is a great recollection of history and this brave woman establishing a new paradigm in the new world in which women also were suffering a lot of privations, and women were put in the box only to be a mothers, to be a nuns, or to be teachers, later on to be nurses. But that was the only four accepted social roles for a woman. And then there is hundreds and hundreds of anonymous workers that as of right now, they're doing something good for the movement, you know? So we want to focus in the very first one, our dearest Amélie Gabrielle Boudet. And if someone here speaks French, we would like to apologize in advance because we don't. So we're going to pronounce at our best. So Amélie Gabrielle Boudet, her nickname was Gabby, and she was born by the end of the 16th century, 1795. She discarnated in 1883. She was born in a small town called Tailles by south of Paris on November 22nd. And then she discarnated in Paris in January 21st. And according to her biographers, she was the only child. However, it seems like it's not the final decision. It seems like she has another sibling, but for our purpose, it doesn't really matter because we're going to talk about her and her mission, because she was a missionary and she came with a great responsibility on her shoulders. So Amélie, she was a very jovial, active, inquisitive child. And her parents, they noticed, they observed this. And one of the good things of the situation is that she was born in a wealthy family, let us say. Her father was a notary. The mother was at home, but she was an artist, a plastic artist, as well as her grandmother. They were plastic artists. So they already have this intellectual spirit in the family. And they noticed that Gabby, she had this eagerness to learn. So they decide, although it wasn't common to provide formal education to girls, because remember, they are learning to be wives. So why are you going, it's no need for you to learn to write and to read and math, not to say astronomy. What's the purpose? You're going to be at home having kids and cleaning the kitchen or telling the cooker what to do, right? That was the mentality of the time. However, her parents, and this, we know there is no casualty. No, when we have a reincarnatory plan, that's why she came to this home, because her parents support her and provide her with what we will call nowadays the elementary school, right? That it will go to 5th, 6th grade. So they needed to pay for her to go to school. And she was happy as a bunny, and she wanted more. She wanted to learn more. So the family decided that it was better for all of them to move to Paris. So Gabby can continue her formal education. And they decided to enroll her in a special school in which teachers were learning how to be teachers. So in French and in Spanish and even in Portuguese, we say la normal. La normal, I don't know how to say that in English. The what? No, la normal. La normal, that is an institute, is what? Normal school. Okay, the normal school, which is not normal because you are learning all the basics, but also you are learning education, didactics, pedagogy, psychology, whatever is necessary to educate children and youth. That was an extreme step for Gabby already. And one of the cool things, and we say cool things, is because this institute, this school that you went, they follow the Pestalozzi model. So here is Mr. Johann Heinrich Pestalozzi, a great pedagogy. I will need an English interpreter tonight. He believed in the ability of every individual human being to learn, in the right of every individual to education. He believed that it was the duty of society to put this right into practice. And there is more and more. So in our personal case, our bachelor degree is in psychology and pedagogy, and we need to learn about Pestalozzi, for instance, and all the other educators, you know. So this was a revolutionary point of view for education. Like every human being needs to receive education, and it is a right to be educated. It was, wow, what are you talking about? So Gabby had the chance to go to this normal school, and she graduated at, was calling the time as a first degree teacher. It doesn't mean that she's going to teach first grade. It was the highest level or the highest degree that you can get as a teacher. So she graduated from there. So Gabby didn't stop there. She was hungry for knowledge. She was very intellectual. She was passionate about arts. She was passionate about science and technique. So she continued studying and she became a fine art teacher. And this being influenced by her mother and her grandmother. She also was a poet, a plastic artist, and an author. Her books are Spring Tales, Notions of Design, and The Essentials of Fine Art. What? A woman producing academic books in 1820s? What's that? But she gained a position there. She was well respected, although they were still looked a little bit down by her counterparts, male counterparts. But she was very serene, and as we mentioned before, very jovial, very strong character. She didn't diminish herself for the situation. And one of the things that we found about Gabby is that she was a plastic artist, so she painted, but she also liked to do like a miniature sculptures as a hobby. And she was passionate and devoted about education and teaching. And so we are getting close that Mademoiselle Boudet is going to meet Monsieur Revel. Okay? So then it comes this 27-year-old guy. He actually went to study with Pestalozzi. He came back to Paris and he decided to found what is called the Technical Institute. At the time, he was Professor Revel. And he hires Amélie because her fame preceded her. And she started working there day and night. They became great friends. They became great colleagues. They understand each other pretty good. And one of the things that we also call our attention from Amélie is by the time she was around 36, she was 9 years older than Kardec, and she decided by herself against society that she didn't want to get married because it was in fashion. She preferred to continue living with her parents and tolerating that even close friends of her, back down and abandon her. She preferred that rather to be engaged with someone that She didn't love, her mind wasn't stimulated, and she would lose her freedom to create and to produce. And probably nowadays we take that for granted. And I'm talking about us having this lifetime in a woman's body. Because at least on this side of the world, we have right to education. We have the right to education. There is another parts of the world in which girls are being killed to go to school. We know that. So currently we have the chance, and we can put in our minds whatever we want to be. And if we persist, we will become that. But at her time, worldwide, that wasn't the norm. That was deception. And she was the exception. And she has to confront and to swallow all the insults and the disdain of other people because she passed 20, no married. She got to her 30s. Oh my God. Like in the Catholic Church, you are going to dress saints. It's like a girl, your time is over. But guess what? Professor Rivalli and Amelie, they fall in love. So they got married on February 6, 1832. It was how do you say, a legal wedding, not a religious one. They didn't want it. And they start working together with ever more love and dedication in the Technical Institute. And she was Professor Rivalli equal. They have discussions about different topics, and she was over there as her equal. And that's what Rivalli liked about her. And by the way, when Rivalli, we say he was 27, he was pretty mature for the time too. Pretty mature. So if he got married with a lady that is younger than him, or probably they won't develop this synchronicity, this empathy. And because we know it was a reincarnatory plan, right? So Amelie actively participated in the campaigns created by Professor Rivalli in favor of the reorganization and democratization of the education. And finally, under the law of Guizot in 1833, elementary school was legally established. And we were looking, oh my God, 1833? So before the time, if you don't have the financial means to send your kids to school, it's no school, no learning of the basic reading, writing, math. So it's a big leap to do this. And they were successful because they truly believe that is by educating the individuals that you open the road to progress, to the personal progress and social progress. But not everything is a pink tail. This is real life. So they fall in bankruptcy in 1835. And we got to learn that it was because of Professor Rivalli's uncle. He was an associate in the Technical Institute. He put some capital to have the institute. And then, unfortunately, this guy was a gambler. And he played with the money of the institute. So they got in bankruptcy. So Professor Rivalli, he finds a job as an accountant for 3 different great companies. We will say like Amazon, Target, I don't know, this type of companies, something like that. So he got a job like that, and they both taught free lessons in their home from 5 years. because they couldn't stop. So they decide to open the door of their home and teach lessons in math and algebra, astronomy, language arts, physics, chemistry, and so on and so forth. So they taught these lessons not only to children and youth, but also to adults that they were aspiring to become teachers. And they used the Pestalozzi model. So they were also training teachers, spreading this new mentality of freedom, of liberation. And then we came to the historic moment in which Madame Rivel becomes Madame Kardec. So she was actively support and participate in the discoveries of the revolutionary enterprise of Spiritism, meaning they both attend the sessions for the turning tables, they both analyze the situation, they both were trying to find a logic explanation behind the scenes. It wasn't only Kardec. As a matter of fact, Kardec consulted her so many times. Like, I don't know how. Probably he called her Gabby, but probably at home he was like a dear. Dear, my love, what do you think about this Zens that happened the other night? They analyze things together, and she provided feedback. And he took into account very seriously this feedback, as we're going to see later. He actually expressed in public how important for him is to have this partnership, because it's friendship, it's partnership. It's like we're in this here together. So we know that the Spiritist book was published in April 1857. We also know that Professor Rivali, Hippolyte Leon, I'm missing one, Rivali, he decided to use a pen name because at the time, after being an accountant for these companies, he also used his free time, because these people, these two guys, they didn't sleep, according with the biographies. It's like, God. So he was working full time, and then at night, with no electricity, with no heat, with no AC, with no paved roads, with the smell of the horses on the street. Sorry for these things, but it's just to see how harsh was life. So he decided to write some academics books about math and astronomy, and he was recognized by the French Academy, and he was popular, and he has a name. He got a name among the academics in Paris. So when he published the Spiritist book, that's why he decided to separate his name, personal name, from this work, because these two are also very humble, and things weren't about them. It was about the message. So he used Allan Kardec. We all know it was from a previous reincarnation. She decided that it would be practical also to change her name to Madame Kardec. And from this year on, she is known as Madame Kardec. So after the publication of the Spirit's book, there is a lot of people that they are curious, they're in need, they need comfort, they want to learn more, they want to help, and they didn't have like a specific place to receive everybody, so they opened the door to numerous people there. And they were coming day in, day out, at 9, at any time. And one of the beautiful characteristics of Gabi personality, she was jovial, she was kind, she was a very good host. So she received with love, with a warm welcoming, everyone that was in her house. And they didn't have a maid, at least they didn't mention that in their biography. So she was taking care of the people, and serving the tea and the cookies and all the 9 yards. And when everybody left, Gabby sat in their office and she started helping to reply to the hundreds and hundreds of letters that they received from all around the world, and without any complaint. And then the next day, and the next day, and the next day. But people were approaching her, because she was a wise woman, because she had knowledge, and because she had this motherly heart that you feel at ease with her, sharing whatever is needed in life. And Spiritism is a doctrine that came to comfort and to bring us hope, and is helping us to think and to discern. So definitely, she was an example, a role model for that. And we already say that. And she also, besides everything that we mentioned, she helped to coordinate meetings and travel with her husband. Everywhere they were together. That was the dynamic duo, to say in other words, always supporting one another. So here, Kardec expressed in the Spiritism. So let us say something. After a year of having this whole bunch of people in their house that they welcome with all their love, they say, well, this is not, we need to keep our sanity. And also neighbors, they were complaining. You know how is a lot of people. So they finally, a year after, they rent a place and they open the Spiritist Society of Paris. And here, Allan Kardec, in the Spirits magazine of June 1865, he expressed about Gabby, my wife, who is neither more ambitious nor more interested than I am, fully agrees with my points of view and has supported me in the laborious task, and still does so, sometimes beyond her strength, sacrificing without regret the pleasures and distractions of the world to which she was accustomed by her family's position. I wish our husband in the future could say the same from us. What a lovely tribute to his wife. And they were so in sync, and Amélie Gabrielle was so in sync with the Spiritist teachings because she discerned about it and she found there an answer for so many questions in her mind. And obviously we know it's part of the reincarnatory plan because they were prepared for this task. But when she find the logic, the reasoning part, the philosophy part, the moral part, and it makes sense for her. That's why she embraced Spiritism as her own. And after Kardec disincarnates, she's going to take the lead, the torch. And we're going to see that. So he passed away on March 31st, 1869. Gabby was 74 years old. They were about to open the library or the Spiritist library in that year, in April 1st or 2nd. And unlike Kardec, the night before, he has the intuition that he's going to discarnate. Because obviously they were in connection with the higher spirituality. So he calls Gabby to the room and he say, my love, probably, my dear, we don't know. But we want to think that it was a very, very kind, sweet relationship, as some of their friends mentioned, that they were very sweet to one another. So he called her and say, Gabby, I think my time is coming, and I don't want for you to cancel or to postpone the inauguration of our Spiritist library. Please fulfill everything as we already planned. And she say, okay, I will. He discarnate. A lot of friends that are part of the movement approach her and say, okay, Gabby, we need to postpone. Our great master, our beloved Kardec, he passed away. He did the transition, so it's not possible for us to do the inauguration. And she, very firm and strong, say, we will. So she goes to the inauguration. She stays there for 2 or 3 hours. She gives a short speech, and then she goes back to the funeral celebration. But this speaks about her moral stature and her commitment with the doctrine. And she, as well as Kardec, they knew that this was something bigger than them and that will impact so many people around the world beyond Paris and France. So they were really visionaries. So if we don't do this right now, some consequence will have for other people like us now in the future. We are receiving their gifts of selflessness. So for Gavi, she decided to preserve all Kardec's works and the society. So she founded and coordinated the Society for the Preservation and Continuity of Kardec's works, because she knew she needed to protect. Why? Because now they were visible. Now people knew about them. And it was a great opposition from the Catholic Church. They were even burning books, Spiritist books. So she decided that, because she knew also when I discarnate what is going to happen, so to protect and preserve all this work, she founded the society, and she was working day in and day out, 74 years old. And we were thinking, gosh, and we are complaining because Saturday is raining and I have to go to the center. It's just, but right, we complain, whatever is our age here, we still complain like, oh, well, life is so precious and every minute is so precious. So she knew that. And then in 1875, she needed to testify in the legal process of the spirits. So what happened is one of the workers from the Spiritist Center, he published some pictures. And actually, if you Google, you can see her picture and of kind of a gods and the face of Kardec. So, no, that's fake. That is not a materialization. And only with Kardec, but some other spirits. So then they were accused, the society, and she was the one that was in front of the society, the director, right? So they were accused of fraud, and they need to go to this process of the spirits. And she endured there the mocking and sarcasm and criticism, because everybody was laughing and saying that the Spiritist doctrine was all a fraud. that was a circus, etc., etc. And she kept going, keeping quiet, as Joanna de Angelis say here. She never repay evil with vengeance or negativity. And no doubt that she had the support of the good spirits, because it must be very difficult to be in a trial for something that you know is true and you believe, but people is making fun of that. So Madame Kardec discarnate on January 21st, 1883, at 87 years old. And the next day, a mediumistic communication from Antonio de Padua. He's considered a saint in the Catholic Church, and he's from Italy, or he was in Italy. He described the welcoming of Gavi in the spiritual world. So it was celebration. It was celebration in the spiritual world. Kardec was there, as well as so many other friends that welcoming her as a completer. If you read Andrea Luis' books, we know that the completers are the ones who fulfill the reincarnatory plan. So she went far and beyond. She was a completer and went even further. The way to discarnate, so Allan Kardec, he discarnated because of an aneurysm. And the way to discarnate, she was waking up, she was getting out of the bed. And she felt a little bit dizzy. She was 87, so probably vertigo or something like that. And then she fell. And when she fell, she hit her head in her nightstand or the chest dryer. And it was a concussion. And this happened on January 19. And 2 days later, she discarnated. What is the nice thing here is 5 days later, through the medium Corduri, Gavi communicate a message, and then Allan Kardec communicate a message. So 5 days later of her discarnation, she's already communicating a message, very awake, very alive. And why this is a surprise? There is no a surprise for the communications from the spirit realm to the physical one. That is no surprise. We know that is mediumship, or that we know. What the surprise is, usually when we discarnate, we go through a period of, now I forgot the name, of a spiritual perturbation. Thank you to the guy behind the camera. Spiritual perturbation. It means, even though we have all this knowledge, and even though it's a transition, and we are kind of lost, and we feel like we are sleepy, and each one of us, we have a different transition, but actually in 5 days, to be with that clarity of mind, it is impressive. And then, finally, in 1890, as a result of Madame Kardec, the friend Lemaire, that he was the one working with her after Kardec disincarnate, and other workers, the posthumous works of Kardec were published. But it was thanks to her. So after Kardec discarnate, she spent other 14 years working diligently and holding the torch of Spiritism in Paris. So we would like to finish with this affirmation that we like pretty much. The supreme acts of a woman generally remain ignored. They don't see the light of the world's admiration because they are acts of the private life. Far from the eyes of the public, they are motivated only by love. and we express our gratitude to our dear Amélie Gabrielle Boudet for inspiring us and for encouraging us to do what it seems impossible. If she did it, we can eventually. So thank you. What do you want me to do? Oh. Okay. Okay, I'm being instructed. If there is a question or comment, Kristen, can you take the microphone, please? Oh. Do you mind?
I was just curious. I mean, first of all, thank you for this great presentation. Actually, I learned a whole lot about Amélie that I didn't know. And I might have missed this. So, two questions. One, thank you, Danny, putting the camera right in my face. One, is there more? Were you able to find this information in English about her life, and where did you find it? And two, was there anything that you read that surprised you? Or was it more so you're like, oh, that makes sense, like that she would be that way or whatever? Thanks you.
Thank you, Kirsten. I don't know. I assuming there is information about her in English, but when I was researching Google, uh, well, I usually go to the Spanish Spiritist Federation. That's my first resource because they have everything for free and the PDFs and everything, and I can read the Spanish. But majority of the information I found it in Portuguese and in Spanish. I assuming because the Spiritist magazine is being translated now into the English language, we will find that information, but I didn't. And as a matter of fact, I struggle with some of the translation because it was from Portuguese to Spanish to English. But hopefully it wasn't a lot of errors there. What caught my attention is she was funny. She was jovial. She was full of life. And when you see the pictures of the portraits, at the time, it was this custom that if you pose for a picture or for a portrait, you needed to be serious, kind of formal. It's very recent that we do our selfies with all the faces and things of the sort. But it was, if you see portraits from people from the past, it's very rare to see someone smiling. But she was a fun lady, fun, strong, determined lady. Thank you. Let's see. Avi, she say wonderful presentation, Alba. Thank you. Is there still a thriving Spiritist community in Paris? Yes, yes, and yes. And not only in France, but in numerous countries in Europe. Yes, definitely. We have another one? No? A comment?
Hey, Alba.
Okay, Diony. Oh,
Thank you so much for your presentation. And I appreciate a lot that you highlight a couple of women, but we know that, especially nowadays in Brazil, the number of spiritists that carry the movement in Brazil, they are women. The
Mhm.
man is in the front as president, but the workers, majority is women, right? So this is show to us that I think we are in good hand, right?
Mhm.
Um, so another thing is about those women that is already in the other side. So I know that you spoke a little bit about Joana de Angelis and even our dear Marlene Nobre that
Mhm.
was contemporary of us here. So any highlight from those that are on the other side that you, as you're doing this study, feel very connected?
Yes, most of them, majority of them, they were writers or journalists or working somehow with what we call the pen and the letters. And this is something that impacted me personally because that's one of my passions, writing and poem. But it seems like it is a very fulfilling activity for the soul and the mind. And before we continue, I don't know if we missed this part. Why the Spiritism movement, it was so important also at the times of Gavi and Professor Rivali. It was because, as mentioned, women, we didn't have voice nor vote. So Spiritism came as a body of knowledge that support the freedom of speech, the freedom to decide, the freedom to vote, the freedom to decide over my body, over my life. And that is also why it's so impactful in women nowadays. That's I mentioned at the beginning, we mentioned at the beginning, as we are speaking, learning here right now. There are so many countries in the Middle East that girls and women, they are persecuted, they are incarcerated, they are killed for just to express they want to go to school. So Spiritism, by telling us we are spirits and we all have the capacity to learn and therefore the right, is revolutionary. Kirsten? Dione.
It's not a silly question. It's not a silly question, but it's not a profound question. It's like when you were studying about her, did you hear anything like who she was before this mission of being so important in Spiritism and helping Kardec? Because
Mhm.
my gosh, what a mission! That was a mission because she had,
Yes.
you know, Lucy, our friend Lucy, she came here sometime and she said she never heard about, she's French, and she said she never heard about, and she was like, oh my God, it's amazing
Mhm.
because, of course she came later. But have you ever heard any speculation, at least, like
I
who
was
she used
curious.
to be?
We have the same curiosity, like, you know, who was this person before? But we couldn't find anything. The only thing that we found is that since very early age, she demonstrates this eagerness to learn and her passion for science and everything. And it was a trait, a characteristic from her previous reincarnations. So that's how it was also kind of, I will say, kind of easy for her to acquire this knowledge because she already have it. It was a matter of remember. But they didn't mention about previous reincarnations. No, no, no. All right. All right. So I think we're good. Are we good? Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. So with the light, the love, the tenderness of Amelie Gabriel, we're going to move now to our spiritual passes, to have our fluidic water, to finish with the very first part of our event, which is nurturing our soul, and then we will nurture our body. Okay, thank you.